This is really a story about one single piece of land, right in the middle of the Mississippi River. It's a story about a massive transformation, how a sacred cultural heartland for Native American tribes became a fortress of American military power. So let's dive into how this island's destiny was so completely reshaped. For more than a century and a half, these stone buildings on what we now call Arsenal Island have been churning out military hardware. It's really become a symbol of industrial might right in the American heartland. But this image, this picture of defense and industry, well, it's only one chapter in a much, much longer story. So the big question is, how did this happen? How did this one island become so strategically important? The answer, as you'll see, lies in the time long before a single stone of the arsenal was ever laid. And to get that answer, we have to go back in time. Our first section is an island crossroads. Because long before it was a military reservation, this island was pulsing with life. It was an essential hub for the people who had called this region home for centuries. Way before any European explorers showed up, the island we know as Rock Island was absolutely central to the lives of the Sauk and Fox peoples. Its location, right where major rivers meet, made it this natural center for trade, for agriculture, for all of tribal life. This wasn't just some random piece of land. It was the absolute cornerstone of their society. But that way of life, well, it was about to run head-on into a whole new kind of economy. In this next section, we're going to see how the arrival of outside interests, people looking for furs and minerals, began to reshape the entire region. In that first wave of this new economy, it literally arrived by canoe. French-Canadian voyageurs pushed down the Mississippi, creating this huge trade network for animal pelts. And all of a sudden, the river wasn't just a natural boundary anymore, it was a commercial highway. And just look at the sheer diversity of what was here. Sure, fur was the first big draw, but traders pretty quickly realized there was a wealth of other goods: corn, beeswax, even feathers. But there was one resource, this kind of dull gray rock, that would soon overshadow all of them. And that resource was lead. The French actually taught Sauk and Fox women how to mine the ore and smelt it down in these crude furnaces. This kicked off a kind of industrial boom, turning the region into a major supplier of lead. But that newfound value? It put a huge target on the land itself, sparking intense competition and, you guessed it, a desire for control. And all of this brings us to a really pivotal moment in the island's history, a controversial treaty that would formally and pretty dramatically shift control of the river and all the land around it. To really get this treaty, you have to see just how fast things were changing. In just a few decades, control of this whole territory passed from France to Britain and then to the new United States. So when the Louisiana Purchase opened up the Mississippi to American business in 1803, getting a formal land deal became a top priority for the U.S. So, in 1804, you have William Henry Harrison, the governor of the Indiana Territory, meeting with this small delegation, just 5 chiefs, down in St. Louis. The goal? To secure a massive land deal. But the way this whole meeting went down, that would become a huge source of conflict for decades. And this, right here, is the heart of the problem, buried right in the treaty's language. This clause, Article 7, seems to promise that tribes could keep living and hunting on the land. But see that key phrase, remained their property? Meaning the U.S.'s property. The whole concept of land being private property that you could just buy and sell was completely foreign to the Sauk and Fox. For them, it was for communal use. This misunderstanding was, basically, a ticking time bomb. Okay, so this slide just lays it out in black and white. On one side, you have nearly 50 million acres of land given up, an enormous territory. And on the other, the payment? Goods worth just over $2,000, plus a small yearly payment. The imbalance here it's just staggering. So with this treaty in hand, the U.S. government had the legal justification it felt it needed. And with the lands now officially U.S. territory, the Army began to see the island not just as property, but as a key strategic asset. Just 1 year after that treaty was signed, Lieutenant Zebulon Pike led an expedition up the Mississippi. He was basically the Army's eyes and ears on the ground, tasked with mapping this huge new territory and finding the best spots for military outposts. So Pike's mission was really twofold. He was part explorer, mapping the river and scouting for fort locations, But he was also part intelligence officer, gathering info on British traders who still had a lot of influence in the region. Pike's report zeroed right in on what he called the Big Island. He praised its high, defensible cliffs and its commanding position over the river. His recommendation was so persuasive that, in 1809, Congress acted and officially designated it a federal military reservation. And here it is, the vision becoming a reality. These 1816 plans for Fort Armstrong weren't for some temporary camp. No, this was a permanent fixture. It was a projection of American power in stone and timber, and it sent a very clear message. The U.S. government was here to stay. You know, if you go to the island today, you can still see a replica of one of Fort Armstrong's blockhouses. And it really serves as this physical reminder of this profound transformation, from a center of tribal life to a military outpost on the American frontier. And so that leaves us with a fundamental question. The story of Arsenal Island is, for sure, one of strategic foresight and national defense. But it's also a story of displacement and contested agreements. So when a piece of land becomes a fortress, what is gained and what exactly is lost?